On this week's edition of the Political Stock Exchange, we'll try and get a sense of which way the public is thinking on the issue of the demands made by the protesting wrestlers. Do the wrestlers have the public support, or are people veering towards believing Brij Bhushan Saran Singh? That big poll coming up on tonight's edition of the Political Stock Exchange.
हम हाथ जोड़े खड़े हैं कि भाई इन बच्चियों को, इन बहनों को न्याय दे दीजिए।
1 महीने से सिर्फ न्याय के लिए बैठे हैं, सच्चाई की लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं हम सब, लेकिन न्याय दिलवाने के बजाय और बहुत सारी चीजें हो रही हैं।
What next for India's biggest Dangal? Wrestlers adamant on arrest Brij demand. POCSO case against Brij to be withdrawn. Wrestlers versus WFI boss. What is India's opinion? Big focus on Newstrack this evening.
Here's a look at the headlines I'm tracking tonight. CBI files FIR in the Odisha triple train tragedy case under charges of negligence and conspiracy. Death toll mounts to 288. Siddaramaiah government issues notification for free power with caps and clauses. BJP calls the scheme a fraud. BBC India admits it underreported its income over the past several years. The broadcaster's 2 offices were surveyed by the Income Tax Department in February. White House hails India as a vibrant democracy. The statement comes days after Rahul Gandhi's criticism of the Indian government and institutions in America. India take on Australia in the World Test Championship final at the Oval on Wednesday. Australia announced their playing 11 while Rohit Sharma maintains silence over the Indian squad. What happens next in India's big Dangal? The protesting wrestlers have reported back to their government jobs, but they say their protest is on. They still want Brij Bhushan arrested. The Delhi police, meanwhile, has recorded the statement of the suspended WFI chief for the second time. Sources are telling India today that the POCSO charge against Brij Bhushan is likely to be dropped. In a moment from now, I'll play out the Sea Voter poll on the protests by the wrestlers and give you a flavor of what the Indian public is thinking about this massive issue. But first up, here is the day's top story.
Camping at Jantar Mantar since April 23rd. Detained. Their camping site cleared little over a month later. In tears, they gathered at Haridwar last week to toss their medals into the Ganga. The athletes were talked out of their plans though. And now, when ace wrestlers Sakshi Malik, Bajrang Punia and Vinesh Fogart have rejoined their job at the railways, they have made it clear going back to official duty does not mean abandoning their protest.
कईयों के मन में भी आती है कि ये लड़ाई बीच में छोड़ रहे हैं या हम इतना सपोर्ट कर रहे हैं तो ये बीच में अपनी नौकरी ज्वाइन कर रहे हैं। ऐसा बिल्कुल भी नहीं है। हम ये लड़ाई लड़ेंगे और अपनी आखिरी सांस तक लड़ेंगे जब तक न्याय नहीं मिल जाता। बस जो ये होल्ड आया है ये इसीलिए है कि थोड़ा प्लानिंग कर रहे हैं कि आगे हम इसको कैसे बढ़ा सकते हैं।
Wrestler Bajrang Punia insisted that the protesting athletes have not withdrawn their case against Brij Bhushan Saran Singh. The BJP MP accused of sexually harassing female wrestlers as chief of the country's wrestling federation charges he denies. The wrestlers say they are even prepared to sacrifice the job if it comes in the way of their protest.
इस आंदोलन के बीच में अगर जॉब कोई बाधा डालेगी तो हम जॉब छोड़ने के लिए भी तैयार हैं, क्योंकि हमने अपना सब कुछ दांव पे लगा के हम ये लड़ाई लड़ रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये लड़ाई बहन बेटियों की इज्जत और मान सम्मान की लड़ाई है। तो हम देश की बेटियों को जब तक न्याय नहीं मिल जाता तब तक इस लड़ाई में लड़ते रहेंगे।
हम पूरे देश भर में पंचायतें करेंगे जैसे उस टाइम पे करी। सारा देश आज तैयार है इन बच्चों के मुद्दे पे। उसकी गिरफ्तारी पहले है, सरकार बातचीत से रास्ता निकाल ले या नहीं बातचीत करती उनकी गिरफ्तारी कर ले।
A day before the protesters met Home Minister Amit Shah, farmers in khap panchayats of Haryana have set a June 9 deadline for the police to arrest Brij Bhushan Singh. They warned of intensified protests in the event if he isn't taken into custody by Friday. But the reassembly of the wrestler protest scheduled for Friday at Delhi's Jantar Mantar has now been postponed. Farmer leader Rakesh Tiket, however, stopped short of announcing a new date for the demonstration.
सरकार इनसे बातचीत करे, बातचीत शुरू हुई है, अभी उसके क्या रिजल्ट आए वो नहीं पता, लेकिन 9 तारीख वाला प्रोग्राम जो होगा, अभी इनके कहने से 9 तारीख वाला प्रोग्राम अभी स्थगित करा जाता है जो दिल्ली में था, और जो भी ये डेट देंगे उस पर सब लोग हम इकट्ठे होंगे।
Meantime, a team of the Delhi police has visited the home of Brij Bhushan Sharan Singh at Gonda in Uttar Pradesh. Investigators have recorded statement of a dozen people as part of the probe into charges against the BJP MP. With Kumar Kunal and Abhishek Mishra, Bureau Report, India Today.
Okay, so like we do every week, we want to give you a sense of how the public is thinking about a critical issue at the moment. So the team at Sea Voter has put together various questions around the opinion of respondents on this protest by women wrestlers. I want to take you through some of the responses. So I'll start with the first question. What's your opinion on this whole issue of the wrestlers versus the Wrestling Federation chief? So here is the first response coming up on your screen right now. This is, a general sense of how people are perceiving this issue. 62% of the total respondents who were surveyed said that this is a fight for truth about sexual exploitation. So 6 out of 10 respondents in this Sea Voter survey think that this is a fight for the truth about sexual exploitation. 8% think that this is a fight for supremacy. Remember, a lot has been spoken about this possibly being a fight between the Haryana lobby and the Uttar Pradesh lobby. All that really is down to just 8% of the respondents. 19% of the respondents think the wrestlers are being used for political gain. But largely, and this is the most important number here, 62% of the respondents in the Sea Voter survey seem to be on the side of the women wrestlers. Let's now come to question number 2. Who is speaking the truth? So coming up on your screen now, and this is broken down into 3 categories. At the end, you have the overall number. So of the sample that was surveyed by the Sea Voter team, 67% are on the side of Sakshi Malik and the women wrestlers. Only 17% are on the side of Brij Bhushan. What we can do is dissect this data further by looking at how many NDA voters, remember these are voters who largely would vote for the ruling government, out of them as well. And this is a very significant takeaway. 54% of those who say they vote for the BJP and the NDA government think that they are on the side of the wrestlers. Only 26% of BJP voters are on the side of Brij Bhushan. So that is, and obviously amongst those who vote for the opposition, 3/4 of the respondents say they're on the side of the wrestlers. This is very significant because everybody's generally had a sense that people seem to be on the side of the wrestlers. It's never been empirically quantified, which is what we're doing right now, giving you a sense of 67% of the total respondents who were sampled. It's a relatively small survey. It's a weekly telephonic tracker done by Sea Voter, but it gives you a flavor, empirical data-based flavor of the mood amongst the voters. And remember, this is a scientifically dispersed sample, so it's just the way you do an opinion poll or a post-poll study. So the sample is broken up, and I have Yashwant Deshmukh of C-Voter joining us on this broadcast as well. He'll explain how this sample has been stitched together. I want to come to question number 3. Are you satisfied with the action of the Delhi police? Here, 16% of the respondents say they are completely satisfied. If you want an overall sense, then look at the last figure. If you want to break it down further, look at the NDA vote, because this tells you the percentage of disaffected voters, those who say they back the NDA but on this issue are not happy with the NDA's handling of this issue. So 16% of the overall voters are completely satisfied, 13% are somewhat satisfied, 19% are somewhat dissatisfied, and 40%, the biggest number there, is the number of respondents who are telling us that they are completely dissatisfied with the actions of the Delhi police. So, Mr. Commissioner, if you're watching, 40% of the respondents are telling us they are completely dissatisfied with the manner in which the Delhi police has acted in this case. Who's responsible for not finding a solution? The sports minister and ministry are blamed by 32% of the respondents. 15% say the players are being unreasonable, that their demands are unjustified, and the slow pace of the police probe is blamed by 37% of the respondents. So largely, the police probe getting the flack, and then people not happy with the sports ministry and the minister for not moving fast enough and helping find a solution to this. Do you support the arrest of Brij Bhushan, Sharan? So let's take a look at the responses on this question. 64% of those who voted for the opposition say they support the demand for Brij Bhushan. 43% of the NDA voters say they support the demand for the arrest of Brij Bhushan, and 56% of the overall voters say they support the demand for arresting the Wrestling Federation chief. So that said, let me now go across to our panelists, get the first set of responses. I have several more questions on this survey. I'll take you through the remaining answers in just a moment, but let's get some initial reactions. And allow me to welcome our guests for this broadcast, starting with Yashwant Deshmukh, the lead cephalogist at C-Voter. He and his team have brought this poll together. With us also is Ayaz Memon. Ayaz Memon is, I'm told, in London watching the match, which is really nice, which is where I'd rather be rather than in the studio, but such is life, and life is tough. And at the Oval also is my colleague Nikhil Naz. Nikhil Naz hopefully cheering for an India victory. He's our editor sports at India Today TV. Rahul Srivastav has no such luck. He with me, like the rest of us, and also Himanshu Mishra, very much in Delhi, our national affairs editor. Himanshu Mishra is the editor for Aaj Tak. He's with us on this broadcast as well. And Krishna Punia joins us, MLA and Olympian. Remember, she's a Congress MLA. So, welcome to all our guests. I want to go across to Yashwant Deshmukh first at C-Voter to try and explain, as I welcome Karuna Nandi, senior advocate at the Supreme Court, on this broadcast as well. So welcome to all our guests. Let me go across to Yashwant Deshmukh first. Yashwant, can you explain to our viewers how big this sample is, how this was calculated? Because what your poll is throwing up is that 67% of the total respondents in your survey seem to be on the side of the respondents. That's a political headache, given that this is a BJP MP that you're talking about from Uttar Pradesh, because almost 7 out of 10 respondents seem to be siding with the women wrestlers.
Well, that's the wonderful part of this entire, panel study, that we know precisely where the voters have been voting and whom they have been supporting so far. And that's how we know from the cross-tabulation where their sentiments are rooted. And honestly speaking, it's hardly surprising for me. I felt all along that probably people are not going to look at it much in a very political way. They are going to get affected by in a much more emotional way, and that is pretty much evident. Yes, the opposition votes are probably more inclined for the responses on the negative scale, but even the NDA voters have more or less said that, this is something which is not going well. This is something which they don't think that has been handled properly, and they don't approve of, and they wish that some justice is done, and not just done, it's seen as well. And this saying, not just from the fact that they are looking at the allegations, they are also saying that, even if the allegations are false, and even if the justice is taken through in that way, in the right manner, at least the process should have been done proper. And that means that Mr. Brij Sharan Singh probably in the very first stage should have at least stepped down from his post and said that, okay, let the law take its due course, and if I am proven without charges, then I will come back at my post, and if not, then let the law take its due
Karuna
course.
Nandi, now this is a double headache for the government, because not just are they losing the support of those who don't vote for the NDA, naturally the opposition vote not with them, a very high percentage of NDA voters are also backing the wrestlers, and especially amongst the women voters who backed the BJP government very resoundingly in recent elections. There seems to be a sense of discomfort, and while this issue is being looked at from a legal perspective in the court of public opinion, somehow the narrative seems to be on the side of the women wrestlers. Karuna.
I must first congratulate Mr. Deshmukh for actually dividing up the poll between NDA voters and non-NDA voters in a world that has become extremely polarized. So that, I think, is a very relevant division. However, and I understand what this show is about, justice is not a popularity contest. In this case, however, we see that no less than Olympians who have won medals for this country in spite of all the challenges that they face, have come, and they are taking steps like saying they will be forced to give up their medals and put them in the Ganga. Now, in a case like this where a number of wrestlers have come and they have made, and the facts that have been alleged in the FIR are similar. The way in which, and it's essential to the case, so I think it's essential for us also to start using specific language, because if they can suffer it, we can speak about it. There are allegations that Mr. Brij Bhushan has placed his hand repeatedly on their breasts, on their stomach, repeatedly on these various wrestlers, including a child, a minor under POCSO. And these kinds of allegations merit an FIR immediately under the law. Immediately. So the fact that they had to go on a protest, and for so long they sat, and with huge public support, and even then the FIR was not registered, contrary to law, contrary to 5 judges in the Supreme Court in Lalita Kumari, contrary to section 166A, which says that any police official that fails to do this can have proceedings and an FIR against them. What does this tell us? And then we see visuals of the same police that failed to register the FIRs, dragging these women through the mud, and their supporters, their necks on their throats, the kind of brutality that is not necessary by any means. So frankly, I think that, does it take this level of injustice to cut across both sides of the political spectrum? I'm glad it has. But frankly, every single case of sexual assault, which inevitably is against a powerful person, a relatively powerful person, not this kind of imbalance, but a relatively powerful person, should cut across in this sense.
Okay. Nikhil Naz, what's the sense you pick up by talking to wrestlers outside of those who are protesting? Which way is the Indian wrestling community leaning on this issue? Are they more on the side of the women wrestlers and their protest, or are there those who also support Brij Bhushan Sharan?
Rahul, it'd be unfair for me to say that there aren't wrestlers that are supporting Brij Bhushan Sharan at the moment. There have been a few wrestlers that even I've spoken to that have, in that sense, offered some sort of support to Brij Bhushan Sharan. Having said that, a lot of that is on the compulsion of, trying to stay within the system. a sportsman's career. And here I'm talking about wrestlers that are not that mainstream when it comes to whether it's media coverage or in terms of, the tournaments that they play, how much do they get coverage in mainstream or social media. So these are wrestlers that have to fight a daily battle. Now, can they really go against or be very vocal against the president of a federation who in the sense controls what happens with their wrestling career going forward? So maybe not. And maybe that's why you do hear a lot of lip service from a section of wrestlers. That said, I've also spoken to a lot of wrestlers who've not come on record, but are not happy with the way things have happened. Yes, they may not have any sort of sexual harassment charges to level against someone like a Brijbhushan Sharan, but when it comes to mismanagement, when it comes to high-handedness of running the federation, I think majority of the wrestlers that I've spoken to, even the ones that have not been on the dharna, have been aggrieved. They've been not happy with the way wrestling has been looked after in the country. You had the wrestling league a short while ago that did bring in a lot of money into the sport, and then one fine day it was decided that let's get done with it. Maybe because the administrators or people that are running the wrestling federation weren't happy with the kind of shares that were coming in their pocket. So those are issues that I don't think many wrestlers are happy with. And even if I was to tell you about the amount of aam janta or fans of wrestling or sports fans in general, I've met a lot of them here in England. And the one thing that most of them ask me is that what's happening with the wrestlers' protest? What is it, that is being done? Why do we have to see wrestlers that we cheer for, being treated the way that they were treated by the Delhi police? So I think majority of the people that I've spoken to, fans in general as well, have been very worried when it comes to, especially those visuals that came out on the day of the Parliament inauguration when they were trying to cross the barricading. I think those visuals are something that are fresh in the memories of everyone that I've spoken to. I also spoke to a few former players, in fact, while here in England, a few former cricketers, and all of them said, we may not be following wrestling regularly, but what we have seen so far and the way the wrestlers are being treated, that's not how you treat some of our top level athletes.
Okay, you're there to cover the cricket. Let me not hold you back for the wrestling for too long. Nikhil Naz has a job to do, so I'm going to let him go. Thanks, Nikhil, for joining us. I want to go across to Rahul Srivastava because you're talking, Rahul, to many in government. What's the sense that you're picking up in terms of how the government hopes to deal with the issue? We saw Home Minister Amit Shah meeting with the wrestlers. We know that there have been back-channel parleys with these wrestlers, trying to find some kind of a solution. Assurances being held that justice will indeed be done. Is the government cognizant of the fact that this is now becoming a public relations or a narrative nightmare where opinion seems very strongly to be on the side of the women wrestlers?
Yes, Rahul. The government seems to be cognizant. See, in an ideal world, Brijbhushan Sharan Singh should have resigned. In fact, somebody like him shouldn't be heading a sports body, and politicians should not be heading sports bodies. There is no reason they should be. It's always been replete with controversies. But the fact remains that if you notice, Rahul, that since this protest is on, this is the second instance since January where the government is displaying political broad shoulders, taking body blows on an issue and virtually saying that those who are accusing need to lay the charges. The last one was the Adani case also. In that also, the government said that till you have evidence, you cannot come ahead and charges. And this has virtually been the similar element here also, that the wrestlers need to prove that what they are saying is substantial. Now, eventually what it means is heading towards a legal battle, and the government may perhaps not be pushing somebody like Brijbhushan Sharan Singh out. There could be political compulsions. What Yashwant's survey finds something very interesting is that the NDA voters are saying, a lot of them are saying that wrestlers, they are backing the wrestlers. But I want to ask Yashwant that in the ideal world, will today those who are NDA voters supporting the wrestlers, eventually will they be voting as Thakurs, Brahmins and others and upper caste when the election comes, or they will be voting on issues like wrestlers? So that's one catch where the BJP must have factored, BJP has factored this kind of thing in. Second very important element, Rahul, is that the BJP, why it doesn't want to do anything right now, admission of guilt, because they know the moment they act against Brijbhushan Sharan Singh, it will be an admission of guilt and the blame will be laid at the door of Mr. Narendra Modi, Prime Minister. Second is a UP compulsion, the upper caste voter. they also feel that at one level, this is eventually becoming Jat versus others. And in that, the BJP feels in a state like Haryana, since 2014, they have been factoring that element in and they have been benefiting from it. One important element is the window of opportunity the government has got. One, the statement by the minor. What it is, one will have to wait and confirm. Has that offered a window of opportunity? What were the terms and conditions on which the wrestlers went back to work after their talks with Amit Shah and the back channel talks and others? Because eventually, I think it is also going to be that how substantially correct are the charges of the wrestlers, because the government is not relenting as far as taking a step is concerned,
Okay.
and how to sustain their agitation.
हिमांशु मिश्रा, हमारे दर्शकों को ये बताएं कि ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह के बारे में ऐसा क्या है कि सरकार अब तक कार्रवाई नहीं कर पाई है? क्या ये पॉलिटिकल है? उत्तर प्रदेश में कितनी सीटों पे इनकी पकड़ है और कितनी बैकिंग और कितना सपोर्ट इस वक्त पार्टी और सरकार की तरफ से ब्रजभूषण शरण को है?
देखिए राहुल, सबसे पहले ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह को बैकिंग जो है वो सरकार की तरफ से पूरी है। अगर आप देखेंगे 7 रेसलर्स ने जो है उनके ऊपर आरोप लगाए, उनमें से एक लड़की जो है नाबालिग थी। अब ये कहा जा रहा है कि उस नाबालिग लड़की ने कोर्ट में जाके अपने स्टेटमेंट्स को बदल दिया है और जो जज हैं उनके सामने 164 के में बयान दिए हैं। अब उसको लेकर 1-2 दिन में पुलिस जो है अपनी फाइनल रिपोर्ट जो है लेके जाएगी पॉस्को एक्ट के लिए, वो कोर्ट में सबमिट करेगी। अब देखना यह है कि क्या उस रिपोर्ट को सबमिट करने के बाद ब्रजभूषण सिंह के ऊपर से पॉस्को एक्ट हटता है। लेकिन बाकी के जो रेसलर्स हैं उन्होंने जो आरोप लगाए हैं उसको लेकर पूरी इन्वेस्टिगेशन हुई। 6-6 घंटे की 2 बार इन्वेस्टिगेशन जो है, पूछताछ जो है वो ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह से दिल्ली में की गई। उसके आधार पर जो है दिल्ली पुलिस गोंडा गई थी, जो उनका गृह क्षेत्र है जहां से वो चुनकर आते हैं, और वहां पर लोगों से बातचीत की। उनका ये कहना है कि विनेश फोगाट ने उन पर आरोप लगाया कि 16 अक्टूबर और 17 अक्टूबर को उन्होंने उनके साथ दिल्ली के जो उनका सरकारी आवास है वहाँ मिलने गई थी, उनके साथ सेक्सुअल हरासमेंट की। अब ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह का कहना है कि उस दिन जो है वो 16 तारीख को लखनऊ में थे, वहाँ पर एक नेशनल कैंप लगा हुआ था, उसका ट्रायल चल रहा था, वो वहाँ पर थे। 17 तारीख को वो जो है अपने गृह क्षेत्र के अंदर पब्लिक मीटिंग्स में थे। उसको लेकर पूरी की पूरी इन्वेस्टिगेशन हुई है और जिन बाकी लोगों ने आरोप लगाए हैं, चाहे वो साक्षी मलिक हो या अन्य महिला पहलवान हो, उनको लेकर जो भी आरोप लगाए गए हैं, जिस भी डेट के जो लोग उस घटनाक्रम पर मौजूद थे, उन सबके स्टेटमेंट्स रिकॉर्ड किए गए और लगभग 200 लोगों के स्टेटमेंट्स रिकॉर्ड हो चुके हैं। अब सवाल यह है कि पार्टी से उनको कितना सपोर्ट मिल रहा है। जी हाँ, ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह एक चीज़ को लेकर बहुत नाराज़ थे। उनका ये कहना था कि जो ओवरसाइट कमेटी बनाई गई है उसकी रिपोर्ट क्यों नहीं पब्लिश की गई। उस रिपोर्ट को अगर आप पब्लिश कर देंगे तो रेसलर्स को जवाब मिल जाएगा। वो रिपोर्ट अभी तक पब्लिश नहीं की गई है। इसको लेकर ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह नाराज़ थे, लगातार उनको मनाने की कोशिश भी होती रही। उन्होंने यहाँ तक घोषणा कर दी थी कि वो जो है भारतीय कुश्ती संघ का चुनाव करवाएंगे। उसको लेकर एडॉक कमेटी बनाई गई, पहलवानों ने उस पर ऐतराज़ जताया था। एक एडॉक कमेटी बनाई गई जो डे टू डे अफेयर्स को देखेगी, चैम्पियनशिप्स के लिए प्लेयर्स का सिलेक्शन होगा, वो तमाम चीज़ें हैं। लेकिन इतना ज़रूर है कि अब देखना यह है कि ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह को लेकर पार्टी के अंदर से भी जो है वो उनके खिलाफ स्वर उठने लगे हैं। आप देखिए, चौधरी वीरेंद्र सिंह है, कैबिनेट में मंत्री हैं, उनके मंत्री थे, उनके बेटे विजेंद्र ने सवाल उठा दिया, प्रतिमा मुंडे ने सवाल उठाया, मेनका गांधी ने सवाल उठा दिया है कि रेसलर्स की बात को सुना जाना चाहिए, उनको न्याय मिलना चाहिए। अब दबी जबान में जो है बहुत से लोग ब्रजभूषण शरण सिंह के खिलाफ तो बोलते हैं, लेकिन वो खुलकर नहीं बोल रहे हैं, क्योंकि ये पार्टी के अंदर कहीं ना कहीं ऐसा ना हो कि बगावत की जा रही है। इससे पहले भी कई बार स्पोर्ट्स को लेकर भारतीय जनता पार्टी में जो है लड़ाई हुई है। कीर्ति आज़ाद ने अरुण जेटली के ऊपर आरोप लगाए थे, उसके बाद उन्होंने पार्टी से इस्तीफा दे दिया था, उनको सस्पेंड भी किया गया था। ये चलता रहता है, खेल जगत और राजनीति को साथ लेकर जब चलेंगे तो इस तरीके के सवाल उठेंगे ही।
Ayaz Menon, now this really comes back to having politicians run sporting bodies, because if this was just a professional administrator running the wrestling federation, and if these were the kind of charges that were leveled, there would be no political compulsions involved. Braj Bhushan Sharan Singh would have to step down pending an inquiry, which would happen virtually anywhere in the world. And the longer this gets prolonged, the more it settles in public imagination that these girls are being given an unfair deal.
Yeah, Rahul, I mean, look, there are two aspects to this. One is, as a politician, you have all right to stand for becoming a president of a federation. You know, you're elected, and therefore nothing can stop you from being elected. But being a politician, and if you're elected, doesn't give you the right to hold on to that position for eternity, or under all kinds of, you know, things that may be happening, swirling around you, including such very grave charges. I think we need to make a distinction. One is how the federation is functioning or not functioning, the malfunctioning, maladministration, and etc. The other is the nature and the gravity of this case, the kind of allegations that have been made, and how this has been handled and treated. And I think that's where the issue is. I mean, Nikhil mentioned about he's in England like I am, and almost just about everybody wants to know, you know, what the hell is happening? Why the optics are so poor, and the kind of, you know, they've been treated like street criminals, the way they are being pulled around, and they are, you know, I mean, ultimately they are highly decorated, respected champions who've been made to feel like petty street urchins who are indulging in some street crime. And I think that has not
You're
gone
telling
down
us
well
about what
at all.
people in the UK are telling you. I can also tell you what everyone in the newsroom, and I'm sure many watching would like to know outside of what we're discussing, is that the IPL final got washed out on the first day, almost got washed out on the second day. What's it looking like in London at the moment? Will we have a full match?
Yeah, I mean, look, the Met Office's, you know, the forecast is pretty good. There's been a little damp, not damp today, but it's been windy, it's been overcast. There is some threat of rain, but the forecast for the next 5 days is of good weather. We should have a full match. And remember, there's an extra day. It's not just a 5-day match; it's a 6-day match in case there's any play lost because of rain.
Well, hopefully it won't come down to that. I want to come back to the questions that we're discussing in this poll. This is about whether the BJP will be impacted electorally. So I'll take that question now on our screen. Will the BJP suffer the consequences of backing Braj Bhushan Sharan Singh? Let's take a look at what respondents in this India Today See Voter poll are saying. Now you've got 47% of the respondents saying yes, the party will suffer, 18% saying the party will suffer to some extent, 23% saying not at all. Now what is important is 33% of the NDA voters are saying the BJP will suffer, 21% are saying they'll suffer to some extent. So about half the BJP voters are also concerned about the impact this may have on the party's fortunes. Let's come to the next question after this. This is on whether the Prime Minister himself should intervene. And here 68% of the respondents are saying yes, the Prime Minister should intervene. 19% are saying no, the Prime Minister need not intervene. 58% of NDA respondents, NDA voters would like the Prime Minister to intervene. Is it appropriate for khaps and farmers to pressurize the government? 55% saying yes, pressure is good. 30% say no. So 55% of the overall respondents say, okay, khap pressure isn't necessarily bad. And the last question, opinion on wrestlers talking about taking political support. How do people feel about this? 45% say it's okay for the wrestlers to be taking political support. 38% say no. So they don't really want the wrestlers to politicize this, but a majority say, okay, if that's the only way in which something can be done, then what option is there? Yashwant Deshmukh, Rahul Srivastav raised an important factor, which will at some level determine what happens in this case, that even if about half the NDA respondents think this will damage the BJP's prospects, will an issue like this change voting behavior? One is that you don't particularly like what you do, what someone is doing, but you just hold your nose and walk the other way. So you know that it's stinking, but you don't get in that direction, you hold your nose, you walk away. The other is that you get so angry that it changes your voting inclination. To what extent may that happen? Because that then becomes really important.
Well, Rahul is absolutely correct on that one, that, you know, things which leave a bad taste in your mouth, things which you don't really approve of. There are many things, but that may or may not actually affect your voting behavior. However, I mean, in the last question, that there was an interesting contrast, Rahul, which I want to point out. Some answers might be there. A big chunk of NDA voters do not approve of politicization or political the stage being given to opposition politicians. Also, almost about 1/3 of opposition voters do not approve of that either. So it's like there are issues which grow beyond politics and the caste equations. So in other words, which Rahul decoded much better than me, Haryana politics might not be that impacted because the Haryana BJP politics was always about the non-Jat voters. Western UP, it might, but I don't think so that at the time of election it's a too far away thing and there are way too many issues. But one thing is very interesting, that when I was looking, even though the sample size is not that big that I should be doing much more caste-based analysis, but I figured out that this issue is growing beyond the caste and religion calculation. It is something that people are more sensitive about the optics which is coming around. They are finding that these are the champions, these are the girls who should be supported. And if the supporters of Bhushan Sharan Singh are saying that, this is probably a fight for political approval on a political control of the wrestling federation and everything, if that is their narrative, then public has not really been briefed properly. What I'm simply trying to say, there are two sets of points. One point is saying that, okay, these ladies should be getting justice, they should be heard. Other is saying that, okay, this is a political fight and, sports people should not be using this as a political fight. Somehow at this point of time, majority of the public is buying the point number one. As far as they are concerned, as well the majority of the public across the political spectrum is concerned, they are looking at this with a sensitivity, and they are looking at it with more sensitivity towards the female wrestlers, and the optics are not good. That's what they are saying.
We invited the BJP to join us on this broadcast, but they've said since this matter is being probed by the Delhi police, they didn't want to speak publicly. But I have Krishna Punia. Krishna Punia is an Olympian. She's a champion athlete herself. She's also a Congress MLA from Rajasthan. So I want to go across to Dr. Punia now. हमारा जो ये पोल है कृष्णा जी, वो ये बता रहा है कि ज़्यादातर लोग रेसलर्स की बात मान रहे हैं बजाय इसके कि बृजभूषण शरण सिंह का डिफेंस माने. लोगों को लग रहा है कि जो रेसलर्स बात कर रहे हैं वो शायद सही है और जो रेसलिंग फेडरेशन का चीफ बोल रहा है उसको उतने लोग नहीं मान रहे.
मैं राहुल जी कहना चाहूंगी इसके ऊपर, ये बिल्कुल सत्यता है. पिछले दिनों आपने देखा होगा कि जब हमारे एथलीट गंगा किनारे पहुंचे थे अपने मेडल बहाने के लिए, ये इनकी जो इन्होंने डिसीजन लिया था ना, उसने बिल्कुल उस बात पे सत्य के ऊपर मोहर लगा दी कि हम लोग, और मैं जहां तक समझू एक तरीके से एक माँ जब अपने बच्चे को अलग नहीं कर सकती है ना, ठीक इसी तरीके से एथलीट्स की जो 15-20 साल की मेहनत के बाद और सबसे बड़ा ड्रीम जब उसका ट्रू होता है और उसे वो गंगा में फेंकने की सोचे, तो इट्स मीन बहुत ज़्यादा प्रॉब्लम्स में वो लोग रहे हैं, बहुत ज़्यादा हरासमेंट उनका रहा है और कितनी मुश्किलों में उन्होंने ट्रेनिंग की होगी, कॉम्पिटिशन्स किए होंगे, होटल से नहीं निकल पाना, रेस्टोरेंट में या मेस में एक जगह एक साथ चले जाना, बहुत सारी बातें एथलीट ने रखी है. तो मैं देशवासियों का धन्यवाद देती हूँ कि वो एथलीट के बात के ऊपर भरोसा कर रहे हैं और साथ ही उनसे गुजारिश भी करूंगी कि और ज़्यादा उनके जो प्रोटेस्ट उनका चल रहा है उसमें आप मदद कीजिए ताकि हमारी बेटियों को न्याय मिल सके.
रेसलर्स अब अपनी ड्यूटी पे लौट आए हैं, रेलवेज़ में ओएसडी के तौर पे अब वो फिर से काम कर रहे हैं. बात ऐसी हो रही है कि जो माइनर है उसने भी अपना बयान बदला है और कहीं ना कहीं ये सवाल भी खड़ा हो रहा है कि कहीं ये प्रोटेस्टर्स, ये जो रेसलर्स का प्रोटेस्ट है, कहीं कमज़ोर तो नहीं पड़ जाएगा.
नहीं, आज मेरी एथलीट से बात भी हुई क्योंकि आपने जब मुझे ज्वाइन करने के लिए बोला, मैं ट्रैवल कर रही थी और उस समय जब ये बातें मेरे सामने आई तो एथलीट से जब बातें आई तो उन्होंने कहा कि बहुत फेक न्यूज़ मीडिया के माध्यम से चलाई जा रही हैं. हमारा प्रोटेस्ट जो जैसे था वैसे चलता रहेगा, इसमें कहीं कोई कमी नहीं आएगी. तो ये मेरी फ़ोन पे वार्ता अनुसार मैं आपको ये बता रही हूँ. तो उन्होंने जिस तरीके, क्योंकि बार बार जो मीडिया में आ रही थी, मेरी उनसे बात भी नहीं हुई थी, मीडिया पे मैंने सुना और तो उन्होंने इस बात का खंडन किया कि मीडिया ने झूठा प्रचारित किया इस चीज को, और वो लगातार अपने प्रोटेस्ट पे बने हुए हैं।
पर रेसलर्स की कुछ डिमांड गैरवाजिब भी है, जैसे फर्ज कीजिए वो कह रहे हैं कि अरेस्ट कर लो, लेकिन आप खुद विधायक हैं, आप पॉलिटिशियन हैं, एथलीट रह चुकी हैं, आपको मालूम है कि अरेस्ट तो किसी प्रोसेस के कंप्लीशन के बाद ही हो सकता है ना। अगर इन्वेस्टिगेशन कंप्लीट होती है, उसमें कुछ निकल के आता है, वो स्टेप डाउन करें क्योंकि ये चार्ज लगा, ये बात तो फिर भी जायज़ हो सकती है। लेकिन ये कि उनका अरेस्ट हो जाए बगैर इसके कि कोई प्रूफ निकले, इन्वेस्टिगेशन हो, कोई सबूत मिले, तो कुछ ना कुछ तो ये भी इलॉजिकल बात कर रहे हैं रेसलर्स, कहीं ना कहीं इमोशन में या गुस्से में अपनी बात रख रहे हैं। और अगर ये कोई रीजनेबल बात करें तो क्या पता कुछ सोल्यूशन भी निकल आए।
राहुल जी, मैं इस मुद्दे पे ये कहना चाहूंगी कि पोक्सो एक्ट में जब आप दूसरे भारतीयों के साथ एक अलग रूल फॉलो करते हैं, तुरंत आप उन्हें गिरफ्तार करने का काम करते हैं, और दूसरी तरफ आप जब किसी सांसद के ऊपर पोक्सो एक्ट लगता है तो वो कुछ और हो जाता है। ये हमारा सवाल है। और पोक्सो एक्ट मैंने जहां तक सुना है कि पोक्सो एक्ट लगने के बाद तुरंत गिरफ्तारी होनी चाहिए, जो कि नहीं हुई, और ये संदेह के घेरे में सरकार को डालता है कि कहीं ना कहीं वो बीजेपी सांसद को बचाने की कोशिश कर रहे हैं।
Karuna Nandi, where do you come out on this? Would you concede that the demand to arrest Brajbhushan Sharan Singh is probably premature? Allow for the investigation to get completed. Let there be some body of evidence that gets collected against him. If there is prima facie evidence that emerges against the Wrestling Federation chief, then he should be arrested, rather than demanding his arrest and making that a roadblock to everything else.
See, there's a wide misconception that that is what the law says. That's not what the law says. When there is a non-bailable offence that somebody is accused under, then any normal person on the street would be at the moment asking for bail, would be going before the court and saying that, look, I didn't do it. I'm not somebody who has interfered with evidence in the past, and I am not really in a position to threaten witnesses. And so please give me bail. That is how the law usually works. One question that, there's some questions there, and one question is that why that the PM should intervene. Why are you presuming that the PM is not actively supporting? I mean, the entire BJP is supporting this person. How would the law normally work? The person would be arrested, and then within 24 hours, they would have to be produced for bail. Once they are produced for bail, the judge may say, the court may say that, look, the rule is bail, not jail, right? I am going to release them under particular conditions. They must not interfere with evidence. They must not threaten witnesses. They must report to the police station from time to time, and then they will be released under certain conditions.
Okay.
Why has this man been arrested? He has been accused multiple times of violations of the Arms Act, of murder, of robbery. There are 10 cases still pending against him, 40 cases against him, 30 he has been acquitted, 10 cases that are still pending against him. Allegations of murder.
ये भी बात निकल के आ रही है कि क्या ये यूपी और हरियाणा की पॉलिटिक्स का मामला है। एक तरफ सुप्रीमेसी की भी लड़ाई है, वर्चस्व की, कि रेसलिंग फेडरेशन में कौन हावी होगा, उत्तर प्रदेश के रेसलर्स हावी होंगे या उत्तर प्रदेश के एडमिनिस्ट्रेटर्स हावी होंगे या हरियाणा के। तो इस एंगल को भी तो एक्सप्लोर करना पड़ेगा। केवल एक ही बात को मान लिया जाए सत्यवचन के तौर पे और दूसरे एंगल को एक्सप्लोर भी ना किया जाए, ये भी तो कहीं ना कहीं ठीक नहीं है।
राहुल जी, सबसे प्रथम तो जिस दिन ये बेटियां मेडल जीत कर लेकर आई थी, उस दिन हरियाणा की बेटी ना होकर वो देश की बेटी थी, नंबर एक। दूसरा, मैं कहना चाहूंगी कि जो प्रोटेस्ट इन बेटियों ने शुरू किया है, क्या हमारे भारत के, हमारी संस्कृति के इतने कमजोर संस्कार आप मानते हैं कि एक देश की बेटी को अपने ऊपर लांछन लगा के इस तरीके के बैठने की जरूरत है? दूसरा, मैं कहना चाहूंगी कि बीजेपी को छोड़कर या उसकी सहयोगी पार्टियों को छोड़कर मुझे नहीं लगता कि हमारी देश की जो पार्टियों की सोच है, जो उनकी विचारधारा है, वो इतनी गंदी राजनीति करेंगे और किसी बेटी की आबरू को आगे लेकर राजनीति करेंगे। इतने हल्के दिन नहीं है, इतनी हल्की सोच हमारे नेताओं की नहीं है। और जिस दिन ये प्रोटेस्ट शुरू हुआ था उस दिन रेसलर्स ने साफ तौर पर ये कह दिया था कि हम किसी राजनीतिक पार्टी को नहीं इन्वॉल्व करना चाहते हैं।
Okay,
तो
I'll hold
इसमें
it over
उन्होंने
there.
साफ किया
What we know is that the Delhi police did reach Brajbhushan Sharan Singh's residence in Uttar Pradesh, investigated and inquired from members in his family and his staff. They're trying to establish the dates which have been mentioned by these women wrestlers, the dates on which they allege that they were molested and harassed by the Wrestling Federation chief. He's of course saying that on those dates he has an alibi about what he was doing. So we will see what emerges, but what's very clear, and that's the takeaway from this poll, is that public opinion resoundingly, at least 6 veering towards 7 out of 10 respondents, depending on which question you look at, on the side of the Indian wrestlers. And that's the big takeaway from Yashwant Deshmukh's poll with C voter here, saying that on this issue, opinion, even amongst BJP voters, on the side of the women wrestlers. That's the story that the public's court is believing. Of course, there is the court of law, and that's really where this case needs to be tried and probed and investigated, and there has to be a conviction. But in the court of public opinion, it's the wrestlers who are carrying this bout. I'm slipping into a break. When we come back, Apple unveils an augmented reality headset, the Vision Pro. All the hype and chatter around this new gizmo coming up on the other side of a quick break.
Where the software engineer meets the smart market analyst, meets the talented photographer to create the big dream. The world comes together at Shah.